Welcome to Ground Up Growth, where we share entrepreneurial insights, business strategies, and personal growth lessons to help listeners build success from the ground up.
Welcome back to Ground Up Growth. This is episode 10. Today we have Drew Smith, who's an engineer with the Corps Engineers on, and he's going to tell us about his job. And this is going to be a little different than normal. So we're taking a little bit of a turn. We're going to add hopefully an educational component to today's episode. Today we're going to talk about Drew's job, but mainly we're going to talk about the Mississippi River, which is very dear to me and Drew, and hopefully we can shed a lot of insight on the river, a lot of cool facts, and I'm super excited about this. But I think the learning aspect, I think we can learn a lot about the river. And also, Drew will be the first W-2 employee that we've had on the podcast. I've had a lot of people throw a little shade or feel like I'm throwing shade at corporate, and I'm an entrepreneur. I've never worked a W-2 full-time job, so that's not my intentions. And I want Drew to shed some insight on that because, Drew, you've been for 20 plus years, you've been in that corporate setting. Yep. And I'm very interested to hear your take on that. So, Drew, thank you so much for coming on. Start us off. How old you are?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. 38 years, or 39, I forget. And you get past 35, it's like, I don't know which one it is anymore. 39, I turned 40 in December. Married, my wife Leslie, 15 years will be in July. Got two boys, Grant and Jackson, 7 and 2, 5 years apart, and they're wild and crazy like every little boys are. Baseball, everything. So the river's been my entire life. Born and raised in the Delta, grew up in Greenville, Mississippi. My dad was in the towboat business. We moved to Vicksburg when I was about 7 for a towboat job with Ergon. So the river, not knowing then that would be my life, for the rest of my life, but it definitely started out that way, going on trips with Dad to catch towboats in Memphis and Baton Rouge and New Orleans. So it's literally been part of my life. And so when you live in Vicksburg, the Corps of Engineers is a huge piece of everyday life. It's the engineering capital of the world per capita. There's more engineers in Vicksburg per capita than anywhere else in the world. Most people don't realize there's 3 pieces of the Corps there. So and I'll get into the Corps structure a little bit, but there's a district office, a division office, and a research lab. So Vicksburg is extremely unique as far as engineering and federal service for the whole world. So, but growing up, I knew that I had a certain set of skills. I like to problem solve. I was really good in math and science growing up. And so from an early age, really in probably 10th grade, I knew I wanted to be an engineer, regardless of where or how, or didn't know any of that.
Anybody in your family?
No. So I was the first one to go to college in my family. I knew I wanted to go to engineering school, and I knew I wanted to be an engineer. I knew that very early on, and a very decisive person. And so that was focus. That was laser focus. And so I only applied to 2 schools. I grew
up at high school.
Went to Vicksburg High School, and we had a great education system then. I had some fantastic upper level, AP type teachers. So all those upper level math and science classes, breezed through all that. And then, my story goes to Mississippi State. It was not a breeze at all. But but I just knew early on. And then we'd always have speakers come to our math class and stuff from the Corps. And I was like, man, that sounds awesome. They're working with the river.
So you were, what type of engineering did you go into at state?
Civil. So civil is very encompassing. You got, geotech and soils and foundations. You got hydraulics, which is what I do. You got environmental. You got structural, transportation, highway engineers. They all fall under civil. And so you got a very broad background when you go into civil engineering.
In Mississippi State in mechanical engineering for 6 weeks.
Hey, how'd that go?
I realized what I wasn't good at.
Yeah. And so
punted and backed up.
Yeah.
So
and that happened. That's a lot of people.
I had some friends. Matt Doss.
I do.
And Matt Doss is a really good friend of mine. Yep. He was civil engineering, and just the study. And he lived in the library.
Yep. So Matt and I were in that same group. We were in classes together. Yeah, a bunch of guys from Clinton, and I always tell people civil engineering at State or any school is a team sport. It is. It's a group effort, and so we had a group of guys, and my roommate was a civil, and so we had a good group, and we're all still close because we spent some time together.
Right. So you graduated when?
I graduated in 2009. So I was 04 high school. I did 4.5 years at State. It took one semester off to work, and that's kind of leading into my career and how early on I got into the Corps. But yeah, 2009 graduated with an undergrad, and then followed it up with a graduate degree in 2012.
Okay. So did you have any jobs before college?
Yeah, that's great. That's an interesting story. So we always had guys from the Corps come to our classes. We'd always go to field trips out at ERDIC and see the research lab, and I was like, man, this is what I want to do. Right here at home, this is exactly what I want to do. And so many opportunities. And I kept applying over the summer because they had summer intern programs and stuff, and I never could get in. Never could get a call back. I'd call the people. I'd have somebody say, man, we want to hire you. We want, you're on the path we want you to be on. We want to hire you. Come summertime, I'd call. You're not on the list. You're not on the referral list for us to select you. So anyway, I worked for my dad for a summer.
I wanted to hit on that. I don't super know you and know nothing about your story. So I'm so interested in that. And the towboat life, I'm interested what did that look like for you as a kid?
Yeah. A lot of traveling. Obviously, once I got to school, I didn't get to travel with Dad as much anymore. But he worked for a big towboat company there. Transitioned out of that later on, and he's actually the superintendent of the Highway 80 bridge. So Moore River, the Mississippi River Bridge over the at Vicksburg with the railroad on it. So that is a full-time operational bridge. There's no road traffic. So the rail, that's the only rail crossing between Memphis and Baton Rouge, and so it's very important. And they got a big crew that does maintenance constantly on that thing. You can imagine almost 100-year-old bridge.
So he sees the river every day.
And so between my 11th and 12th grade year, I didn't get a Corps job, and I went to work for Dad on the bridge crew. And I figured out real quick that engineering school was my ticket.
Right.
We worked hard and all summer long
to do things you don't like and enjoy. Oh, yeah. We talked about that like Ron Manning on his podcast, talking about toting concrete, doing seawalls. Like he knew that wasn't what he wanted to do.
Yep.
It's so good to scratch that itch, to call things out,
That's right.
I bought a motorcycle when I was in my 20s because I had an itch. And if I wouldn't have scratched it then, I don't want nothing to do with them now.
That's right.
So
and I'll get to scratching itches later on in my career, but yeah. So I went to work for Dad, and from that point on, it was pretty much pure luck that I ended up where I ended up in the Corps. I did get a job with the Corps as a student, and it was absolute luck and chance. It had nothing to do with me being a stellar student or anything. It was a chance encounter. My dad, ironically, on the motor vessel Mississippi, which is a large towboat the Corps owns, that we do inspection trips twice a year on the river with the Mississippi River Commission. So my dad got invited to ride the boat down from Myersville to Vicksburg, and ended up on the tail fan of that boat next to a very high up guy at the Vicksburg district office, and got to talking. Just chance. Told him, hey, my son's trying to get a job with the Corps, and he's going to be an engineer and all this. And
that's just like plays right into.
It wasn't 2 days later.
Will Martin's podcast, we talked about the power of networking.
Man,
it's incredible.
Yeah. And then
you always hear the hands you shake, not the grades you make. But like,
yep,
man,
them two became good friends, and from then on. But I got a job. I went up interviewed with 3 guys, 2 of which became invaluable mentors to me in my career, and working in the hydraulics, where they just put me, where they thought I would fit, and pure luck, just absolute pure luck.
So you graduated Mississippi State 2009, then you went and is that getting your PE? Is that what that is?
No, so that's
something different.
Yeah, something totally different. So I started in high school.
I didn't get my engineering degree.
I started in high school, and I worked all the way through college as a co-op student in the office I ended up in full time. And so I knew.
So how long have you been with the Corps?
Yeah, I've been. My official time starts. I was 19, so a long time.
Golly.
And so I started. I was actually 17 or 18 or so when I actually started as a student. But
yeah,
I went to this office, got out in the field a lot with a lot of the technicians and engineers. Kind of saw how the field work and the data collection fit into exactly what I do now. I mean, it's crazy how starting out, out in a truck all summer in the Delta, taking discharge measurements and fixing gauges and doing water quality stuff with, like interns do.
Right.
And then how that fits in. And, later on, I was hooked. Yeah. I was good then. If I could have quit and not gone to school and just started doing that, I would have done that. But the engineering degree was important.
Right.
So,
okay. So you graduated in 12.
Yep.
Then you were co-oping with the Corps, and then you jumped in full time.
Yep, finished in 09.
Offered you a job.
Yeah, finished in 09 and went to work full time, and I did grad school for 3 years while I was working. So with ERDIC, we have a distance learning center with Mississippi State and other schools too. But I was able to get a grad degree remotely, which was awesome. But in the meantime, again, luck. I had some of the best mentors. I had a guy that I learned river forecasting and project operations and lake forecasting, because it's not just the Mississippi River with the Corps. It's everything. So the Vicksburg district has locks and dams, pump stations, hydropower, giant reservoirs, Grenada, Sardis, Arcabutla. Those are that job too. And so we have to operate.
Because all that affects everything.
All that affects everything. So we got levees, and it's the whole gamut of civil works. Federal civil works is in that one district.
Always something to do.
Always something. So the guy that had about 40 years of experience of doing all of that was we sat next to each other. I mean, I learned, and I just, I just knew that's what I wanted to do. It has a huge impact on the public service, talking to farmers and farmers calling because, hey man, the water's coming up. Where's it going to stop?
Right.
That's big. And I knew what impact he had, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. I didn't care what it paid. I would have done it. And so that's just it's just, I don't know. It's a service type thing.
Right. So tell us about the corporate, just that setting. Yep. And just the pros and cons. Yeah,
and that's a great point, because all your podcast members or your guys coming on so far have kind of been in this group, and I'm way over here. But there's similarities, and the Corps is set up like a very large corporation, about 30-something thousand employees nationwide. Yes. It's big, but we have the entire continental United States plus offices overseas. And that comes in here shortly. But we have a headquarters in Washington, D.C. We have 6 or 7 regional offices, and that's where I work now. Those are division offices, and then each division has 4 to 5 to 6 district offices under it, and that would kind of be like I don't know how you would describe a district office for a corporation, but they're still regional. Yeah, it's still regional. It's still 3 states, 68,000 square miles of rivers and levees and reservoirs and all. It's a big operation, but it's set up very much like that. So then we have what's unique about the Corps is we're DOD, we're Department of Defense, Department of the Army, but a civilian, mostly civil works led workforce. Yeah. We do have a military component, so usually at the district offices, we have a full bird colonel, 06. That's the commander. And then there's several military folks under them. Then we have a civilian chief or director that sits next to the colonel that stays. The colonels come every 2-3 years. They're rotating in and out. But we have civilians that are stacked in a corporate structure based on what you do right next to them for continuity and institutional knowledge. And so that's where I fit, is on that civilian side. Okay. And we have an engineering division that handles all the division and technical stuff. We got project managers. It's a huge engineering firm. That's what it is.
Right. Yeah.
And that's how it's set up. And it, the districts are one to do all the work. And the district office on Clay Street in Vicksburg, you ever seen it? Big red building with black glass, and that's the district office. About 1,100 people that they handle all the river operations. They have a harbor project out there and
goodness
out at Ergon, and I
feel like I'm drinking to a fire hose right now.
Man, it's the Corps is so unknown.
I'm so interested in
people. I know about the Corps, and they don't really know.
Yeah, you don't know. You don't know. I got a clue.
It's a humongous operation. And I know that the federal government gets a bad. Of course, right now is a crazy world in the federal government, but there are just like anything else.
So are you 8 to 5?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Most of the time.
So I'm super jealous of that.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you.
Yeah. Most of the time.
Because the 24/7 will wear you out.
Yeah. And so we get a taste of that. So that in this field that I'm in, when we're dealing with a flood, this one wasn't too big, but 2011
we just came off of one, right?
We did.
And a lot of, again, our listeners, there's a lot of them, if they're not affected or tied to the river, they may not have even known that the river just went through a flood.
That's right. It just looked high.
Yeah.
And so, 2011, I've been out of school 2 years, and we had the big one.
The big one
that's the biggest we've had since 1920.
So, I mean, I know there was a lot of devastation, and I'm not trying to be funny or anything like that, but what was the atmosphere like? Were y'all, I mean, I feel like that's an engineer's like it's what we've been
it's game
working
time.
for. Like, let's go. It's a Super Bowl of
it is.
engineers.
And we didn't know at the time, but it was preparing us for later. But that flood, so we went.
I bet y'all got so much knowledge and insight data that you were able to gather from that flood to be able to help prepare for the next.
That's right. And we learned things, especially in the Vicksburg district, that we thought we knew. Based on previous design projects and things, and they were not accurate, that we learned, which was interesting to see these guys. That the guy that I learned a lot from was in the 1973 flood. He was there then. That was the first flood we'd had since like 1950 or 1937. So big gaps between big floods, and then we had the 2008 flood, which is not that big, and then the 2011 flood was the big one. And to be there. The peon, I've been there for 2 years. I knew nothing. I knew nothing. And it was just to sit back and watch and listen. I had a role, but it was not a decision-making role. I could really take it all in. And that served me so well in the future, not knowing what's coming, obviously. But I knew that this was exactly where I needed to be. My boss at the time, the section chief, was just incredible, just an incredible mentor. Loved to teach the younger guys. He was an excellent decision maker, very good communicator. Brought me into the fire during that event, said, "Hey, you need to go do a news interview. Channel 3 is going to be here this afternoon. Did you shave today?" He's like, I said, I didn't shave. And he said, "That's all right. Don't worry about it." Went downstairs. Here I am at 20, probably 6 or 7 years old, doing a news interview talking about this big flood.
Wow.
And for whatever reason, people are good at different things, and I just happen to be decent at that. Right. So from that point on, I had all the news interviews. I did all of them.
You just earned us.
Yeah. So that, just invaluable experience to go.
Yeah, that's really neat. I appreciate you framing that up and the complexities of the Corps, and just kind of, debunking the myth of just the Corps being a very simplistic little deal. That's a full-blown,
it's
very
mega operation.
I mean, y'all are play a very vital role in everything. So, all right, that's your job and how you got into it. Now, I do want to move into the actual river. So, the Mississippi River, a lot to unpack there. I personally, so you grew up on the river. You've seen it every day since you were a kid. I did not. Obviously, I've driven over the Mississippi River. I did not step foot behind the Mississippi River levee until I got into real estate. That was the first time I was exposed to it. And, it never affected me in a way, a daily way or direct way that I noticed. So I never really thought about it. But fast forward through real estate, because obviously premier hunting land is behind the Mississippi River levee. And, then about 4 years ago, my wife's from Clarksdale, and which North Delta, right there off the river. Yep. And about 4 years ago, my wife and I purchased a farm inside the Mississippi River levee, entirely behind it. Huge learning curve. We built an off-grid cabin. There's no power. There's no water. We're 23 feet off the ground. I mean, these things, like, I've just never, we're around the Big Black here, sure, but we're talking about a river gauge that changes 60 feet.
Correct.
And so this is...
Sometimes it's a year.
New, right. Yeah. And this is new territory for me. Yeah. But in that process over the last 4 years, all the learning, all the way back to the river has moved in the last 180 years. The place I bought has moved 1 mile west.
Yes.
Like, this stuff is just, so it created, where I'm going with that is, it created a desire in me to I became fascinated with the Mississippi River.
Sure.
And I've tried to study it. I have looked into it, listened to numerous podcasts about it. And it is so interesting. It's a phenomenon, and it's the economic impact of the Mississippi River, how it affects us, whether we know it or not, is huge.
Yep.
Just all the little intricacies of the river is so fascinating. So I want to dive into that. So tell me about the Mississippi River. It's 2,300 miles long?
Yeah.
Just give us some.
And you're going to be shocked to know that those stats I just don't even pay any attention to. It's over 2,000 miles long from Lake Itasca in Minnesota, which I've been both ends. I've been to the head of passes in the Gulf, and then I've been all the way to the north. And
is it true that you can step over the Mississippi River?
It's just a little rock weir where it comes out of that lake, and it's very unimpressive. But the river's beautiful up north. It's up in Minnesota, it's crystal clear in most places, and just gorgeous area up there. But it quickly changes, and the navigation function of the Corps really starts right there in the Twin Cities in St. Paul, Minnesota. We start with locking dams there, and there's 27 or 28 locks and dams all the way through St. Louis, right to St. Louis to maintain navigation, because the river falls, I don't know, several hundred feet in just natural elevation all the way down to St. Louis. So to maintain a 9-foot navigation channel, you got to have locks and dams to create pools to maintain a minimum depth. When we have a flood, the locks and dams go underwater, and it's normal.
Right.
So that starts the Corps' navigation mission right there. But the unique part of the Lower Miss, and we're just going to call the Lower Miss from St. Louis south, it is undammed from there to the
free flowing.
So it's the longest continuous undammed navigable waterway in the world. So it's about 1,200 miles from St. Louis below the last dam, Mel Price, all the way to the Gulf. It's about 1,200 miles of fully navigable, 100% of the time navigation.
Free river.
And that's the Corps' mission on the navigation side.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's so wild. It is you hear Alaska's the last frontier and all this stuff. It is our place is a true wilderness.
100%.
You get back there and it is, it just feels different.
Yep.
There's something about it.
Yeah.
And that alluvial soil that has been a really cool thing you're getting sediment from, so what is it? 41%, I think, of the
That's correct.
continental US drains to the Mississippi River.
Yep. And two Canadian provinces, most of Montana and Western New York, everything in between.
And that's what the Continental Divide, just for our listeners that don't, are not interested in this stuff in the past and are wanting to learn. If a raindrop falls on the Continental Divide on the east side, it's coming to the Mississippi River.
Right.
If it falls on the west side, it's going to the Pacific.
That's correct. And same thing on the other side. So the Appalachian Mountains,
right?
The Rockies and Appalachians, everything in between those.
So you've got the Ohio River Valley and the confluence, which is where two rivers meet.
That's correct.
And form.
Yep.
Where they Y would be. Where is that?
That's Cairo, Illinois.
Cairo, Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so then you got the Missouri, which is actually longer than the Mississippi River.
Right.
It's from just north of St. Louis all the way out into Wyoming, into northern Wyoming, and the Yellowstone River Basin. That's all Mississippi River water eventually, which is incredible. You got the Yellowstone in it.
And there's so many factors that affect the river level, like snowfall, snow melt, all that. Is it true that the Ohio River, we're affected more by the rainfall in the Ohio River Valley than we are the upper Miss?
That's correct. Yep. So
is that because of the dams?
No, that is just because of how rainfall patterns have set up over the continental United States for the past thousands of years. And so if you took a boat up the Mississippi River at Cairo and took a right and went into the Ohio River, you wouldn't really notice all that much different. We got a big river from Cairo south, and it's really big on the Ohio too. So in terms of flows, average flows off the Ohio, that's where. So when we have like this event we just had, 70% of the flow at Cairo, where the confluence was coming off the Ohio. And so on average, it's about 60%. And so, but this one was big. It was like 72% at one time. We actually have a little graphic that computes that every day. So you can kind of see where the water's coming from at Vicksburg or Natchez, where the majority of that water is coming from. And this flood, because of where the rainfall set up, The Ohio River is just giant. It's huge.
Golly.
Yep. So 1927 flood, the design storm that we used to design those massive levees.
All right, so let me back up just to paint the picture for our listeners. The Mississippi River levee was put in when? The original levee was what?
We got levees back into the mid 1800s. They were small, they were sectioned, they were, kind of hodgepodge, local levees.
As new crest levels go up.
That's exactly what they're doing. They were chasing events. So when we had a new event, they would build it a little higher. And so we've got a great graphic with that too that shows the evolution of their levee over time. And it's incredible. So
also the last couple of 100 miles of the river, the Thalweg, which is the lowest point of the river,
cross section,
is below sea level.
Correct. About the last 300 miles is below sea level. So that presents a whole other challenge. We hadn't even talked about low water yet, and low water might be worse than high water in terms of dealing with issues.
Yeah.
And so that's something. We're undammed, right? So from St. Louis south, we have no dams to keep that river pulled up. So we're authorized and charged by Congress to maintain a 300-foot wide by 9-foot depth for shallow draft navigation, for towboats and other navigation. And so that is our charge, to keep that 300-foot wide by 9-foot deep channel at all times under any circumstances.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yes. And so I want to know what crystal ball you got to buy your place 4 years ago, because it hasn't flooded in 4 years. And prior to that 4-year period, we were flooding every single week.
We were. From
2015 to 2020, we got a major flood every year.
That's how I got a good deal on it.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly. So
which there's pros and cons with that.
There is. The
duck hunt.
Yep.
Water comes up is good. If you like the turkey hunt, water comes up good. That ain't good.
That's right. That's right.
Those matches. Our turkey population has exploded over the past couple of years. We just had, this would be the first year I've had the flood like we've had it. And I'm actually heading up there tomorrow to see, again, part of the learning. I have never seen the water this high.
Yep.
I've got a bulldozer sitting there on go, waiting to clear out all my roads and see what I'm up against, so that there's pros and cons with the river. It is, like I said, no utilities. We're generator power. We have a rainfall harvest collection system, and then we take a shallow water pump and we pump it up in the cabin. We're a wood burning stove.
That's awesome.
But these are things that, there's so many more life lessons from that. Like my kids will grow up chopping firewood and, the primitive lifestyle back behind that levee. That life is better behind the levee.
Sure.
So
Clay Nukem with a real popular podcast had a great quote, and he said, "If you take a boat down the river right now, it doesn't look all that much different than it did when Lewis and Clark crossed it at St. Louis, and the French were coming up from New Orleans. It doesn't look all that much different." And that's right. When we take that inspection trip down the river, stop at several places and have public meetings and all that, I thought about that. Actually, last spring we were on the boat, and he's right. It doesn't look any different.
Back to the wilderness.
Yeah.
It is a true.
Yeah, especially when the water's up and it covers all the revetment and the dikes and the rock and all that stuff where you've done to the bank.
Oh, yeah.
Once that's covered up, it doesn't look. Those cottonwood trees are 200-300 years old, up and down that river. So it's amazing.
So the Corps came in and put the river dikes in, the rock dikes,
correct,
jetties, dikes, whatever.
Yep.
It's my understanding that they put those in place to more or less self-dredge the river. So the water comes down, hits that rock dike, it throws the water perpendicular back to the Thalweg or the channel, and it self-dredges the river.
That's right.
Is that the reason?
So there's two things going on there. So we have our dikes they're doing exactly what you're talking about. They're there for use stream power to keep the deep side of the channel, the outside bend deep enough. And then we go in with a one-of-one mat sinking unit. There's no other one in the world, and so this is a huge floating plant that ties together concrete mattress and rolls them. You got to see a video of this, and I'll plug a YouTube video at the end. We got some footage of it. Rolls this articulating concrete mattress off the boat onto the bank, and so that bank is armored with concrete mattress because we're forcing all the flow to the outside. We got to armor that so it doesn't scour.
I'm glad you said that. So that's another thing. You've got accretion and you've got avulsion. Accretion is whenever you're gaining land.
Correct.
And avulsion is when you're losing it. Because to your point, like if it's in a river bend or whatever. So the place I bought, thankfully, is experiencing accretion. It is wild to look at this because I'm a big maps guy. Yep. And I've got access to some historical aerial imagery stuff that goes back to the 50s. And it is amazing to look at it. In the last 63 years, our property has gained 285 acres in 63 years. And you can go out there right now and go down to the sandbar, and it's little willow trees that are little willow shoots coming up. It's like, that's the next generation.
That's right.
It's amazing to see that. And to your point, though, the opposite side of that is avulsion. So y'all are doing erosion control measures, putting the concrete mattress stuff in there.
That's right.
Too.
Yep. And so that's actually a flood control feature. So that concrete mattress is flood control. So, you go out at your place, that river from Levee to Levee is, I'm just going to say 10 miles plus, probably. It's long. It's a long way from the Levee.
That's another good point.
Yeah. So
I think I saw the widest point is 14 miles.
Yeah, easily. But between Greenville and Vicksburg, where it's Levee, there's some places where it's that wide. And so we can't move those big giant levees. Right. And so what's that river done over the past several thousand?
Meandered all over the place.
So that's the point of this articulated concrete mattress, is to keep that thing locked in the alignment that it is right now. And so 1962, that's what we call the current river. It's been locked in that alignment because of our efforts with dikes and dredging and the revetment program. So the mat sinking unit, and the concrete mattress, we've locked it in that alignment because our levees they're there. They're not mobile.
Right.
It's a 50-foot tall levee, 200-foot wide bottom. And so we can't so keeping the river from meandering toward the levee and getting to a levee is a flood control feature. And so we can't have a river encroaching on our levee, especially in the lower valley. So that lower valley from K Road to the Gulf, that we call that the Mississippi River and Tributaries Project, so the MR&T. So that big levee you drive over is a one of one in the whole world, is a continuous line of protection from K Road to the Gulf. And so the levee stops right above Vicksburg and forms the Yazoo Backwater Levee and all that, where the Yazoo comes in, and we have a hill line all the way to really Angola Prison. Then the levee starts again and goes down the east side of the river all the way to Venice. And then the other side is continuous from the Arkansas River confluence. That is a continuous line of protection all the way to Venice. There are no breaks in that line of protection from there.
And that levee was put in with mules, right?
Started that way. Started that way. So it's been an evolution of design storms and design criteria and all that, as that levee's gotten larger and larger. And so after the 1927 flood, Congress charged us with going and building a comprehensive, continuous system, not sections of levee, but a continuous system. And so that's why it makes it important. We can't let the river meander toward those levees, because if you have a break in a levee in this system, look at what all is going to flood.
Yeah,
it's bad.
It would be
1927.
The 27 flood, I mean, the economic impact from the 27 flood, they say
over $1 billion,
right?
$27.
Yeah. I mean, like, the amount that would be today would be catastrophic.
Yeah. And that, one of the failures that happened in Mississippi in 1927 was right there at Greenville. So you think about how far Greenville is from the Yazoo River down at Steel Bayou and Eagle Lake. It's a long way, and that whole delta is going to fill up.
Right.
And so it's imperative, and that's just one spot. You got the Arkansas Delta on the other side. North of the Arkansas River.
Like, I think it was Clay Nukel's podcast. It was saying, like, when it broke, then it was like
80 miles.
80 miles
of water.
You
could take a boat from Vicksburg to Monroe.
That you can't even wrap your head around.
So that's what we're protecting. That's what we're protecting with that's just the lower valley. That's St. Louis lower end of St. Louis district, Memphis district, Vicksburg, and New Orleans.
One pet peeve I've got that I need you to debunk I've got some friends that argue with me on this all the time.
I love these conversations.
All right. Is it a bar pit or a borrow pit?
It's a borrow pit.
It's a borrow pit. You can say it one more time.
We are literally borrowing material.
You're borrowing dirt to build the levee.
Yep.
Slang would be a bar pit. But
it's a borrow pit. Now people do get confused because some of the points and things out in the river, Tennessee bar, Kentucky bar,
right.
An old point where on the inside Benway, those are usually called bars. But it is a borrow pit because we are borrowing dirt to build a levee.
Thank you. This was worth the podcast just for you.
Fantastic fishing holes. We call them blue holes up in the Delta. I fished blue holes growing up with my grandfather, and great fishing, especially when the river goes up and comes back down. It's stock full. But borrow pit. So, moving a little bit back into my career, because, I was really focused on that Vicksburg part of the river and everything to do with that. Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, we have projects in all those. And then I got my dream job at 31 or 32 years old as the chief of water management for the Vicksburg district. So I was over all flood forecasting, reservoir operations, everything for most of Mississippi, Arkansas, and Louisiana. And I never got past that point in my brain. That's the job I wanted to do, and I was fortunate enough to do that. Had a detour back in 2013 or 14. The Corps is the Army and the federal government's engineering firm, right? So we if the Army or Department of Defense needs to build something, design something, whatever. The Corps is tasked with doing that. So and we let the contracts, we oversee construction, all those things. And so when we're in a wartime, which we've been for the past 20 years, the Corps is tasked with doing what the Army needs. And so it's the what do they call it? Where the value to the Army or the needs of the Army. And so there was an opportunity to go overseas and do civil construction type work in a not so great environment. And with my hydraulic background, I had really no business going. Again, luck, who you know. And but I had this itch. I wanted to go do it. I wanted to go on these 6 to 9 month deployments over there in war zone and build things for the Army and our partners. And I just had this need. I just had to do it. I had to do it. And my wife is a fantastic lady. This was before kids, and she said, "I wish you'd just get it over with and just go, because you ain't never gonna shut up about it." And so I did. I replied to an email and said, "I'm interested," and then almost nothing happened. And anyway, I ended up getting to go, and that was a great experience. Coming out of that, I went for 9 months in 13, 14 to northern Afghanistan. Did a lot of great work, and came home. Then now that you talk about the professional engineer, so when we get out of school and finish our degree, you take a fundamentals exam. So it's a 8-hour exam to say, yeah, I can do engineering. You still can graduate, but to be a professional engineer, you got to take that exam. You got to work under professional engineers for 4 years, and then you can take. And now it's a little different, but then you take your exam, and then you can be a licensed engineer. And so I came back from overseas, immediately took that exam. It was kind of right in that 4-year time window. Took that exam. Passed it, and it just so happened our workforce was in a strange place where we had no 40 something year olds in my office. It was either people eligible to retire within 5 years, or it was us in that 30-year age range with 5 to 10 years experience. And I was very fortunate. My dream job came open, and I went after it and got it. And then for the next 6 years while I had that job, we flooded every year constantly. It was a lot, and had kids during that time, and it was a lot. But great experience, set me up for where I am now.
Right.
One of my former bosses works at the Mississippi River Commission at one of the regional offices. Remember I said we have a headquarters, we have regional offices, and we have the district offices. Called and said, "Man, I need some help. Got a lot of guys retiring. Would you be interested in coming to the regional office, doing what I'm doing, but for 6 districts, St. Paul to New Orleans, the whole river instead of just Vicksburg?" And so I had my fill of flooding, and of course that wasn't going to go away. But the daily task of flood fighting, with crews out in the field and all that would kind of be a little bit different. And so that was about 4 years ago, and I took that job. But if I'd have never had any of the flooding experience that I had, and not just flooding, it's everything. That door would have never probably opened. Right. And so I'm very fortunate, and it's all the guys that I worked for and learned from.
Man, that's awesome. I want you to talk about, we've talked about the flooding. Let's talk about the drought. Yeah. Because we just came through 2 years of really bad droughts. Yep. And just for reference, so I go off of the Helena gauge. Our place is really right across the river from Helena, Arkansas, and it just crested at 40, what was it, 46 and a half, something like that. And so 46 and a half, and then in 2011, I think it hit 56.
That's somewhere, it was a lot higher.
27, it hit 60 something, hit like right around 60. Yep. So 60 on the gauge. I think it was last October, it was -4. So that's a 64-foot vertical difference in the river.
That's right.
And I love this. I'll just inject this one. I'm selling real estate. Like if the better hunting is always in the lowest spots. Everybody flocks to the Big Black River. Everybody flocks to the Mississippi River. And there's truth. I mean, that is 100% true. Deer don't hang out on hilltops.
That's right.
So with that, like I sold a place one time up in Vaden in Carroll County on the Big Black River. Was watermarks on the trees 4 or 5 feet up, and the buyer's like, does the water get that high? I'm like, yeah, it does. He's like, man, I can't deal with that kind of flooding. I said, can't deal with that kind of flooding. Why don't you come to the Mississippi River?
Yeah.
You ain't seen flooding.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. But with that, it goes all the way down. Tell me about the drought. You made the comment that it could be worse during a drought.
It is. And so in terms of where we end up, especially in the regional office, so we have a headquarters component that's in D.C., in Washington, D.C. We have a congressional delegation component. We have Assistant Secretary of the Army that we work directly for. There's a large overhead component to what we do. So there's a lot of information flow that has to go up. And so my role is absorbing all the information from our district offices, having relationships. That's everything. We have levee board and river. So during flooding, levee boards are huge partners, big relationships. During floods, we're our industry partners. So we have these big groups of towboat companies, and they have these nonprofits and things that kind of watch the river and deal with us more. And so that turns on, that relationship component turns on during low water. But it's the navigation piece of this is, we talked about the meandering river. So in a curve, usually no issues. We're going to maintain depth. But when we go from a right-hand bend to a left bend or vice versa, we call that a crossing. The river gets real flat. There's no slope either way. The current is kind of flat, kind of sheet flow. We don't have any dikes or anything. That's where we have our problems during low flow. So that's if you have a dredge out in the river, they're usually dredging a crossing. And so you're
from
right.
From a navigation
standpoint. So we're trying to maintain that 300 foot by 9 foot channel. And so that dredge is out there trying to keep that depth. And if a dredge is out there, the river should probably shut down for a minimum of 24 hours. And when the
river shuts down,
mm-hmm.
What is the economic impact?
So, when do droughts usually happen? What else is going on in them fields during October?
Right.
So that's the economic impact is we cannot get
grain.
Producers cannot get grain on a barge
up and down the river.
So now you're putting it on a rail, and I should have came with those statistics, but it's insane how many rail cars it takes to equal one 93 foot wide or 35 foot by 93 foot, 193 foot barge, and how many trucks that is. It's like exponential. 200 to 300 18-wheelers per barge, probably 50 rail cars per barge. So that gets passed to the consumer, and we see it everywhere. Corn gets used in everything. Soybeans get used in everything.
Yeah, the thing I was seeing was saying that like 60% of the grain goes up the Mississippi River.
Absolutely. Yeah, or down.
Down.
Yeah, we're trying to get a lot of it to the port of New Orleans to go to other places.
Right.
But yeah, so that grain has to go on a rail or a truck. Especially in 22 or 23, we had real bad droughts both years. 24 was bad too. But that becomes the impact, and that's where our congressional delegations, because now you've turned the whole Mississippi Delta has got this problem. It's not just some port or whatever. It's the entire system.
It's not just a towboat that can't.
It's all
in the 300 by 9 foot.
Crude oil can't get to where it needs to go because usually this low water stuff will last.
Most of the stuff is what? Petroleum products, grain, limestone, coal.
Yeah, big commodities. But we'll get over into wintertime and the river starts freezing up north, and that drops the flows even more. And the river from Cairo to St. Louis is undammed. They got to go through one dam to get to the Illinois River. That's how petroleum products get to the entire Midwest. Everything east of the Mississippi River, Chicago, that's how they get crude oil up there for heating, is by the river. And so that oil comes from New Orleans, goes up the Mississippi River through St. Louis, up the Illinois River through locks and dams all the way up. But if the river's closed from St. Louis to Cairo, it can't get there.
Massive economic impact.
And then it's got to come through the Great Lakes or wherever, and that's it's going to be 3 times the price. So that's our job. I mean, it's to keep that river open in low water, and it just from an information standpoint, information flow. And we haven't even talked about saltwater in New Orleans, but that's where it becomes just it's crazy, and it usually lasts months at a time. It's not, you don't have low water for a few weeks like a flood. This flow is about a month, which is normal. We start seeing these problems in July, August, and I mean they can last well into the wintertime.
And there's nothing you can really do, though. I mean,
we get a lot of help and ideas on what we can do, but obviously we're very limited. That's a big river, and just as much little impact we have in a flood with reservoirs and things like that, we do have some impact, some beneficial impact. But just as much little impact as we have on a flood, almost we have way less on a drought. Everybody's open them reservoirs up there and dump some water. It doesn't work that way. Right. Most of the time, by that time of year, those reservoirs are about empty because they're getting rid of water, getting ready for next winter and spring. Right, they're flood control projects, and so yeah, we get a lot of help from the public and our congressional partners and all that, and we have to dispel a lot of that stuff. But it's good learning for us too. Hey, maybe we can do something. Let's look into it.
Yeah,
and we're receptive to all those things, and we can kind of look at. We got tools to look at a lot of that, but there's not a lot we can do other than keeping the river open with dredging.
Is there anything that you've seen during your tenure that has really had an impact? Let's say, like, I feel like precision ag, tiling systems, like everybody wants to get water off of their place as soon as they can. And then like the more water, the quicker, the more erosion capability. Is there anything that you've seen, like a trend over the last 20 years that like, hey, this does cause a problem?
So we get that question a lot too. So, development, all these cities, there's so much more concrete out there. We got a lot more runoff, and that's probably true for your ditch through town and your minor tributary and creek that drains a lot of town. That's very true for those. That impacts that. That's why FEMA updates their flood maps. We haven't hit on that yet. But for the Mississippi River, that drainage basin is 1.3 million square miles. You cannot put enough concrete out there to impact runoff. You just can't. Yeah. And so while that is true for a lot of our smaller tributaries, we will really never see that impact on the main stem miss. We're talking about 1.5 to over 2 million cubic feet per second during a big flood. So your development in Cincinnati, Ohio, is not affecting the Ohio River
to drop
whatsoever. But some things we're seeing now is areas like yours. You got a great piece of property. You got a beautiful timber stand. That timber stand wasn't always that big, and between the levees all up and down the river. And so what we're seeing is maybe some impacts from we call it roughness. So if a river, if a river is slick like this, it's going to pass water real efficient. But if it's rough and got a lot of debris and
slow it down,
it'll slow it down. So now you might be seeing a little higher stages at the same flow that we saw 10 years ago. And so timber is a big cause of that, and other things. There's a lot of other things too, but that's one thing we're kind of seeing maybe a little bit of a change, because we got all these, it's all private landowners now. You don't have your warehousers and all these out there cutting big tracts of timber anymore,
right?
And it's not a huge impact at all by any means. It's what we have, but it is. We're seeing a little difference, but that's a decadal thing. It takes a long time to see those differences.
And over the years, through the government programs, through USDA stuff, where people are enrolling tillable land into WRE and things like that those programs that because on our place we have tillable land. It's still tillable land inside the levee. I let a friend farm it for free. Sure. Because it's not worth the risk being on the unprotected side of the levee. He can't plant corn.
And that's a rare thing. You go look at historic imagery. There wasn't a lot of row crop anyway.
Right.
And there's even less now, but we are seeing some changes in certain areas where there was a lot. And then now there's, it's WRP or whatever it is. So so your land use, that's what we call it. Land use change inside the batcher, the levee to levee or hill line to levee.
Explain batcher.
Yeah. So batcher is that area from an ordinary high water line on the Mississippi River or top bank, or whatever you want to call it. Those are two different numbers, but from about the extent of the main channel to the either hill line or the levee, that's what's considered the batcher. So your place is fully inside the batcher, normally not wet unless we flood every year for 5 years and it stays wet. But that's some of the best ground.
Right.
Planet.
I mean, you're getting sediment.
It's everything.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And
So vegetation growth, I mean, habitat for anything and everything. It's top.
It's a love-hate because I have to bush hog about 5 times a year. It's I've never seen anything like the ragweed is like 15 feet tall.
And this year it's going to be, that soil got rejuvenated, got watered down deep into it.
So again, this is my first big flood. A lot of my place, about 99% of my place went underwater. I had one little ridge that stayed out, but the rest of it went underwater. What does that flood do to the soil? What kind of effects do you see?
You're gonna, I'm not a wildlife biologist or anything like. I'm an engineer, but I do hunt in the Delta. I've seen it flood a lot. Our place there.
Somebody was telling me the other day that the antler growth on the deer boom during a flood year. Have you heard?
Yeah. Unless
it makes sense with plant. Communities, different things.
You're going to have a lot of things grow that doesn't normally grow. That's what we saw in our place in the Delta. We had water come off of it, and where we normally had, bare ground, we cut timber on it, and this native vegetation came up. And like, where in the world did this come from? And apparently a lot of it's dormant seed in the soil that activates and grows. And, it's not nothing we put down. And, and the deer we don't even need to plant food plots anymore. There's no need.
Protein.
You're wasting your time. They just got an unlimited buffet out there to eat. So that's one thing you're going to see is that a difference in your native vegetation, I think. I'd be curious to see with you. I told you, go check it out in about a month to see what it looks like.
Right.
Probably going to look different than it did this time last year.
Absolutely.
If I had to guess. So it's a wild thing. You don't know what the river's bringing too. Topsoil, seeds, who knows?
Right. Yeah. Buoys. I found all kind of good stuff.
Old boat. Yeah.
They got all kind of souvenirs from the north.
Yeah.
It's deposited.
It's a strange and powerful thing. And, I just love working with it.
Man, it is fascinating. And it changes every day. And, the guy that I bought the place from, he had it for, I don't know, 30 years probably or more maybe. And he just told me that the way he's watched the river change his land and the way it's changed over the years. And he's like, you'll get to see it change. And like, because during a flood is whenever the river changes courses and creates those oxbow lakes and things like that.
What did you buy?
I bought in 2021. I bought in August of 21.
That is not a coincidence at all. That was on the tail end of 5 straight floods, the smallest of which being one about like what we just had. So 2017 was the flood nobody remembers, and it was about the size of one we just had. Every other year was substantially higher than that, 4 to 5 feet higher than that. So yeah, that's not a coincidence at all. I'm sure there was a lot of those transactions that happened in 2021.
Right. Well, I mean, during that time, nobody wanted to be on the river. So like all the equity share, all those floods, they were like dumping them. They're like, I don't want to fool, because the flood brings challenge. I mean, it's
2011.
It's a different work day.
2011 is the marker in the calendar where that Pandora's box opened. Guys that I work with hunted the river, Togo Island, places for 50, 60 years, these old camps.
Right.
They were all leased, Anderson Tully leases. And 2011 scared the timber company big time. And that's when the big sale happened. But it's all gone.
Right.
And so private industry, private sale, which they're taking care of that, the bachelor land is being taken care of like it's never been taken care of before by these private landowners for habitat. Yeah. They're managing it for what it needs to be. And it's a great thing to see.
Right.
And I've made a lot of friendships because of my connection to the river. Landowners up and down the river that call and
I was texting you the last couple of weeks. I'm like, what's because we follow the gauges, but
I know
there's
some nuance.
You got some good intel. I'm like, Drew, what do I need to do? Do I need to move all my equipment out? Or
and that's what I love about the work is, I tell people all the time, I would do that I do it for free. A lot of that's not really my job anymore with my new role, and but I do it for free. It's just that impact to landowners and farmers and their livelihoods, and just if I can help in any way, that's I see the benefit in that.
You are definitely in your passion, in your calling, and that's that's a very fortunate place to be because a lot of people that are probably listening to this that do not like their job.
That's right. And so I heard a couple podcasts talk about the Sunday dreads, and I can honestly say I've never had that. I've never had that one day getting up and going to work for the Corps. I love it. It's a corporate structure. I'm intrigued. You're intrigued with what I do. I'm intrigued by entrepreneurs and business owners and all that. That is super fascinating to me. And so your podcast has been awesome to listen to. But public service is where I'm at right now. I'll be fortunate to retire at a pretty early age, and I look to get into something else.
Yeah.
So
probably with the river.
Probably with the river. Yeah, I got a lot of good contacts now. So
man, that is so awesome. Yeah, that's that I have just fell in love with the river, and private ownership on the river it's a lot of it, but it's all equity share stuff to have solely owned private. I mean, I plan on keeping that place. I have had I've had people try to buy it from me, but I'm like, every time I think about it for about 2 seconds, and I'm like, what could I go buy that would replace this?
That's right.
And, obviously you got your goals and what you're actually going after. But if you want deer, duck, and turkey and you want the best of it,
that's right.
I don't know of a better place.
No, it's the reason that it's so valuable. And they're not making no more of it.
They're definitely not.
And so, that Delta is a fantastic place too, but it's got its drawbacks, which everything does. But right. Mississippi River is a very special place.
It's a love-hate.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'll be hating it tomorrow when I'm
you missed
cleaning it up.
Yeah, you missed the 2019 flood. Your previous owner, I'd pick his brain on that one. So the river, those that don't know, 2019, we started seeing high water on the Mississippi River in the fall of 2018. We had some hurricanes go through the Ohio Valley, and the river came up, and it really never went back down. We were in at flood stage, but river was high, out of bank, well into deer season for the second time ever in the Mississippi River Delta. Deer season closed because of the river was so high in deer season. Everything west of 61 closed, and so that was a unique thing. And then the river never went back down. So every time we'd start getting a peak and a crest and a fall, another basin, one of those 41% basins got hit again with a big rain. And so it was every month we'd get a big rain in one of those basins. The river would fall a little bit and then turn around and go back up. And so the river, we were above flood stage at Vicksburg for 220 something days.
Goodness.
And so same thing for you in your place. So that place was underwater for probably a better part of 4 to 5 months. And everywhere down the river was. Mm-hmm. And so that was one that just very similar to 27.
And it's amazing how the deer will leave and come right back. As soon as the water recedes, they know exactly.
Especially in your place, that delta's dry on the other side. Down above Vicksburg, we had a major problem in the Yazoo backwater area. Eagle Lake, South Delta was underwater for that same amount of time. And so the gates are closed down there to keep the river out, but rainfall fills that interior basin up. And so that's where the wildlife really took it. Our place, we haven't seen the deer numbers since then. That was 6 years ago. And so that is still recovering. But up and down the river where they have that dry land on the Delta side, protected side to go.
Right.
That's where your wildlife really thrive.
Yeah.
So,
man. Well, Drew, I really appreciate you coming on, man. This has been very educational, and I've got a big passion for the river, and I know you do too.
Absolutely.
We're definitely going to be talking to each other through droughts and floods for the foreseeable future. So, I really appreciate you coming on, and you got an awesome story.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, man. This was a great. We need to do about 4 hours.
Long format.
Yeah.